The first shots came at dawn, plasma bolts that turned the morning sky purple and left smoking craters where human settlements once stood. Captain Mark Stone watched from the bridge of the Defiance as his homeworld burned below, another victim of the Galactic Coalition's cleansing campaign. "Sir, we're receiving surrender demands on all frequencies," Lieutenant Kate Rivers reported, her voice steady despite the tears streaking down her face. "They're calling us ... monsters." Mark's jaw tightened. Monsters. That's what they'd called humanity for the past decade, ever since first contact had gone so catastrophically wrong. The Coalition species, the graceful Ilari with their crystalline bodies, the ancient Corvin with their vast intellects, the peaceful Zenith with their harmonious societies. They couldn't understand humanity's contradictions. How could a species create both poetry and warfare? How could they show such tenderness to their young while simultaneously developing weapons that could crack planets? "They don't understand us," Mark said quietly, watching another city disappear in a flash of light. "They see our capacity for violence and think that's all we are." The Coalition had tried integration at first. Humans were placed in carefully controlled environments, monitored, studied. But every human settlement eventually erupted in what the aliens called inexplicable chaos. A fistfight over resources, a passionate argument about philosophy, children playing war games, all evidence, the Coalition claimed, of humanity's inherent destructive nature. "Incoming transmission from the Coalition flagship," Rivers announced. The hologram of Admiral Kess materialized before them, her blue-scaled features arranged in what passed for disgust among the Ilari. "Captain Stone, you will surrender your vessel and submit to relocation. Your species has proven too dangerous for civilized space." Mark stood slowly, every muscle in his body coiled with fury and grief. "Dangerous? You want to see dangerous?" Kess's membrane wings fluttered a sign of surprise. "Your threats only prove our point. You are monsters." "No," Mark said, his voice carrying across the bridge to every human soul listening. "We're survivors. Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. HFY Chronicle Stories is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you." The first human ship had been destroyed 3 months ago, a peaceful transport carrying families to a new colony. The Coalition claimed it was a preemptive strike against human aggression. They couldn't have known that every human who watched their loved ones die that day would carry that moment like a burning coal in their chest. "Cut transmission," Mark ordered. He turned to his crew, seeing the same grief and determination reflected in every face. "All hands, this is your captain. They called us monsters. They hunted our children. They burned our homes." His voice grew stronger with each word, but they made one mistake. They left us alive. The tactical display showed 300 Coalition ships surrounding Earth. Superior numbers, superior technology, superior firepower. Any rational species would surrender. Humans weren't rational. "All ships, this is Defiance," Mark broadcast, on the emergency frequency. "Today we show them what monsters really look like. Not because we choose violence, but because we choose to survive. For every human they've killed, for every child who'll never see home again, we make them remember why they feared us." The Coalition expected surrender or a desperate last stand. They got neither. They got humanity unleashed. The first phase of what would later be called the Monsters' Gambit lasted 72 hours. Captain Stone's fleet didn't attack the Coalition ships directly. That would have been suicide. Instead, they did something no civilized species had ever attempted. They weaponized chaos itself. Commander Beth Grant watched from the bridge of the Resilience as her engineering teams worked miracles with desperation and duct tape. "Sir, we've successfully modified 17 cargo haulers into kinetic missiles. The gravitational math checks out." "And the volunteer pilots?" Stone asked over the comm. Every single one stepped forward, Grant replied, her voice thick with emotion. They know it's a one-way trip. The Coalition had superior shields, superior weapons, superior everything, except for one crucial element. They fought with logic, following predetermined tactical patterns their computers calculated. For maximum efficiency. Humans fought with their hearts, turning every impossible situation into an opportunity for something the galaxy had never seen. Lieutenant, Commander Joe Silva's voice crackled through the static. This is Cargo Runner 7, beginning final approach. To Coalition Command Ship. Tell my daughter I kept my promise to come home. I'm bringing their flag with me. The explosion that followed vaporized Silva's ship and cracked the shields of 3 Coalition vessels. But more importantly, it sent a message. Humans would rather die fighting than live in cages. Admiral Kess stared at her tactical display in confusion. This makes no sense. They're sacrificing valuable assets for minimal tactical advantage. Are they insane? Her aide, a young Corvan named Veo, studied the human attack patterns with growing unease. Admiral, I don't think they're fighting for tactical advantage. I think they're fighting for each other. The second wave came from unexpected vectors. Human mining ships emerged from asteroid fields. Construction vessels revealed hidden weapon modifications. Even civilian transports joined the fray. Each ship was individually weak, but together they created something the Coalition's battle computers couldn't process: organized chaos. They're not following any known combat doctrine, Kess's tactical officer reported. Every ship is using different approaches, different weapons, different timing. Our prediction algorithms can't establish patterns. Captain Stone smiled grimly as he watched the Coalition fleet struggle to adapt. This was humanity's true strength, not their capacity for violence, but their capacity for infinite variation. No two humans thought exactly alike, fought exactly alike, or approached problems exactly alike. What the Coalition saw as dangerous unpredictability was actually the galaxy's greatest tactical advantage. All human vessels, this is Stone. Phase 2 is now active. Remember, we're not trying to win this battle. We're buying time for something bigger. The something bigger was already underway on 17 different human colonies. While the main fleet held the Coalition's attention at Earth, human scientists, engineers, and volunteers were working on projects that would have horrified the peaceful galactic community. They were building weapons that didn't just destroy ships, they destroyed the very concepts those ships represented. Dr. Lisa Park looked up from her calculations, her eyes red from 72 hours without sleep. The quantum disruptor is ready. But James, if we use this ... if we use it, we become everything they said we were, Dr. James Cole finished. And if we don't, there won't be any humans left to judge us. The decision took 30 seconds. Humanity had spent decades trying to prove they weren't monsters. Now they realized something profound. Sometimes, the galaxy needed monsters. The Coalition ships that survived the initial human assault reported something impossible to their commanders. The humans weren't just fighting, they were learning. Each exchange of fire taught them something new about Coalition technology. Each destroyed human ship transmitted its final sensor readings to the survivors. Within hours, human tactics were evolving at a rate that should have taken years. Admiral Kess felt something she hadn't experienced in centuries. Fear. The quantum disruptor activated at exactly midnight, Galactic Standard Time. Dr. Park watched. Her life's work, a device originally designed to heal quantum fractures and damaged ship hulls, transform into something that could unmake the fundamental structure of Coalition technology. Firing solution locked, she announced to the small team of volunteers who had stayed behind while the evacuation ships fled to the outer rim. Coalition command ship in range. All secondary targets marked. Dr. Cole placed a hand on her shoulder. Lisa, you know there's no coming back from this. The moment we pull that trigger, We stop being explorers and scientists. We become what we need to be, she finished. James, they're not giving us a choice. Look at the casualty reports from the colonies. The data streams told a story that would haunt human survivors for generations. The Coalition's cleansing operations weren't quick military strikes, they were systematic exterminations. Families hunted through forests, children executed for the crime of being born human, entire settlements erased from existence with cold efficiency. Lieutenant Alex Morgan, barely 22 years old and the youngest person ever to volunteer for a suicide mission, spoke from his position at the targeting console. My little sister was on Colony 7 when they hit it. She was 8 years old, 8. His voice broke, then hardened into something that would have made seasoned warriors step back. I'm not doing this because I'm a monster. I'm doing this because monsters killed my family. The quantum disruptor fired. The effect wasn't immediately visible. Quantum disruption worked at the subatomic level, unraveling the exotic matter that powered Coalition technology. But within minutes, the results became clear. Coalition ships began experiencing cascade failures as their power cores destabilized. Shields flickered and died. Weapons systems went offline. Life support began shutting down. Admiral Kess watched in horror as her flagship, a vessel that had served the Coalition for over 3 centuries, simply began falling apart around her. What did they do to us? Her science officer, a brilliant Zenith named Prime Speaker Harmony, studied the readings with growing amazement and terror. Admiral, they've weaponized quantum physics. They're unmaking our technology at the molecular level. This shouldn't be possible. The calculations alone would require computational power beyond any known civilization. Then how? Because they're not using computers, Harmony realized. They're using themselves. Look at the quantum signature. It's not machine-generated. Every human ship is contributing processing power through their neural patterns. They've turned their entire fleet into a biological quantum computer. The implications struck both aliens like physical blows. Humans weren't just using their technology, they were using their minds, their consciousness itself, as weapons. The very thing that made them unpredictable, their capacity for individual thought and creativity, had become their ultimate strategic advantage. Captain Stone felt the neural interface burning against his temples as he channeled his consciousness into the quantum calculations. Around him, every human in the fleet was doing the same. Thousands of minds, working in harmony while maintaining their individual perspectives. It was agony and ecstasy combined, like trying to think with the thoughts of an entire species while remaining yourself. Status report, he managed through gritted teeth. Coalition forces down to 40% effectiveness and dropping. Rivers reported, her voice strained from her own neural interface. But sir, the quantum burn-off is affecting our ships too. We've got maybe 6 hours before our own systems start failing. 6 hours. Enough time to complete the mission, but not enough time to survive it. Stone opened a channel to the entire human fleet. All ships, all personnel. This is your captain speaking for the last time. In 6 hours, our technology fails and we die. But in those 6 hours, we're going to show the galaxy something they've never seen before. We're going to show them what happens when you back humans into a corner. The response came from every ship simultaneously, thousands of voices speaking as one, for humanity. The Coalition's retreat began at hour 4, when their remaining ships started experiencing complete system failures. Admiral Kess, evacuating to a backup vessel, sent one final transmission to the human fleet. Captain Stone, you have proven your species to be even more dangerous than we believed. This ends now. Withdraw your weapons and we will discuss terms. Stones. Laughter carried across every frequency, bitter and triumphant. Terms? You want to discuss terms now? After you murdered our children? After you burned our worlds? The neural interface was cooking his brain, but his voice remained steady. "There are no terms, Admiral. There's only what comes next." What came next was something no galactic civilization had ever witnessed: the birth of a legend, the quantum. Disruptor's effects began cascading beyond the immediate battle zone. Coalition technology throughout the sector started failing as the quantum disruption spread along there. Communication networks. Stations went dark. Ships lost power. Entire fleets found themselves stranded in deep space. But the humans weren't. Finished. Captain Sarah West. The Admiral had been wrong about avoiding cultural names. They were everywhere among humanity commanded. The survivor fleet, as they began what historians would later call the grief tour. Ship by ship, system by system, they hunted down every coalition vessel they could find. But they didn't destroy them. Instead, they did something far more terrifying. They made them watch. Coalition Vessel Harmony's Dream. This is the human ship Vengeance. West broadcasted to a crippled Zenith cruiser drifting near the ruins of Colony 7. "We're going to show you something. We're going to show you what your cleansing operation really accomplished." The holographic recordings played across every screen on the Coalition ship. Children's drawings found in the ruins of schools. Family photos recovered from bomb shelters. Audio logs of parents singing lullabies to comfort terrified children in their final moments. Prime Speaker Harmony, who had transferred to the Dream before her previous ship was destroyed, felt something crack inside her consciousness. Something she didn't know could break. "Turn it off," she whispered. "Please, turn it off. Did you turn it off when our children begged?" West's voice was calm, controlled, more terrifying than any scream of rage. "Did you show mercy when our families called for help? No. You called us monsters and pulled the trigger. So now you get to see what monsters you created." The psychological warfare continued for weeks. Human ships would appear wherever coalition forces gathered, broadcasting evidence of their war crimes, forcing them to confront the reality of what they had done. Coalition crews began deserting. Some committed suicide. Others simply shut down their higher brain functions. Unable to process the guilt, the galaxy watched in fascination and terror as humanity demonstrated a new form of warfare, one that targeted not bodies or ships, but souls. Dr. Cole, somehow surviving the quantum burn-off through sheer stubborn refusal to die, made the final broadcast from the ruins of Earth's moon base to the Galactic Coalition, to the Ilari, to the Corvin, to the Zenith, to every species that participated in the genocide of humanity. "You called us monsters. You said we were too dangerous for civilized space. You were right." His image appeared on every functioning screen in Coalition space, burned into their systems by the dying quantum disruptor. "But you made one fundamental error in your calculations. You assumed we were your monsters. We're not. We're our own monsters, and we choose who deserves our protection." The transmission ended with footage of human ships arriving at various non-coalition worlds, peaceful species who had remained neutral during the conflict. But instead of attacking these worlds, the humans began sharing technology, offering protection, teaching defensive strategies. Admiral Kess, watching from a refugee camp on a distant world, finally understood what they were witnessing. "They're not conquering the galaxy," she whispered. "They're reshaping it." The humans were keeping their promise. They were showing the galaxy exactly what monsters looked like, and whom those monsters would protect. The age of coalition dominance was ending. The age of human guardianship was about to begin. 20 years later, the galaxy told different stories about the war of human liberation. Some called it the Monster War. Others called it the Great Awakening. But in the quiet corners of Coalition space, where survivors gathered to share memories they wished they could forget, they called it the day the universe learned to fear. Ambassador Tom Rivers, Lieutenant Kate Rivers' younger brother, stood before the new Galactic Assembly, representing the human protectorate that now encompassed 47 species. His words were calm, measured, diplomatic. But every coalition delegate in the chamber could see the genetic resemblance to his sister, could remember her voice calling out coordinates for quantum disruption strikes. "The motion before us today," Rivers said, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber, "is simple. The coalition species request readmission to galactic commerce and the restoration of their previous technological capabilities." Murmurs swept through the assembly. The Ilari delegation sat in a section marked for petitioning species' former rulers reduced to begging for basic rights. Admiral Kess, now calling herself Citizen Kess, kept her eyes fixed on the floor. "Let me tell you what humanity has learned in 20 years of galactic guardianship," Rivers continued. "We've learned that the galaxy has over 12,000 sentient species. The Coalition spoke for exactly 4 of them. We've learned that there are entire civilizations that lived in fear of Coalition cleansing operations for millennia. We've learned that what the Coalition called peace was actually enforced stagnation." He gestured to the assembly, where delegates from species the Coalition had never bothered to contact sat alongside former Coalition members. "The galaxy is vast, complex, beautiful in its diversity. The Coalition saw a threat in that diversity. Humanity sees potential." The Corvan delegate, former Prime Mind Excellence, spoke with the mechanical precision that neural damage had left. Him, Ambassador Rivers, humanity .. methods during the war were arguably more destructive than necessary. Many Coalition citizens who had no involvement in military operations suffered consequences. Rivers nodded slowly. "You're absolutely right. War is terrible. War is destructive. War leaves scars that never fully heal." He paused, letting the weight of his words settle. "But let me ask you something, former Prime Mind Excellence. How many non-coalition species suffered under your benevolent guidance? How many civilizations were declared too dangerous to exist and were quietly eliminated before they could become threats?" Silence filled the chamber. "We found the records," Rivers continued quietly. 317 species eliminated over the past millennium. Not because they were aggressive, not because they were expansionist, but because they were different. Because they didn't fit the Coalition's vision of galactic harmony. The revelation had taken years to uncover, hidden in the deepest archives of Coalition space. Species that had developed art forms the Coalition found disturbing. Civilizations that had philosophical traditions the Coalition considered destabilizing. Entire worlds sterilized for the crime of thinking differently. "So, yes," Rivers said, his voice carrying the weight of every human who had died in the war. "We were monsters. We were absolutely, undeniably monsters. And we're proud of it. Because sometimes the universe needs monsters to protect it from bigger monsters." The vote was unanimous. The Coalition species would be allowed to rejoin galactic civilization, but under human protection. Their technology would be restored gradually, their military capabilities limited, their expansion monitored. They would be treated with dignity and respect, more dignity and respect than they had ever shown their victims. After the session, Citizen Kess approached Rivers privately. She looked older, worn down by years of seeing her former empire from the perspective of those it had oppressed. "Ambassador," she said quietly, "may I ask you something?" Rivers nodded. "Your species could have destroyed us completely. You had the power, the justification, the support of the galaxy. Why didn't you?" Rivers was quiet for a long moment, thinking of his sister who had died in the final quantum burn-off. Thinking of Captain Stone whose consciousness had been permanently fused with the ship's computer systems. Thinking of all the humans who had sacrificed everything to win a war they never wanted to fight. "Because," he said finally, "monsters aren't defined by what they can do. They're defined by what they choose to do. We chose to be the monsters that protect instead of the monsters that destroy." Kess nodded slowly. For what it's worth, Ambassador. I think the galaxy is safer with your kind of monsters watching over it." Rivers smiled, and for just a moment, Kes could see the family resemblance to every human who had died protecting the innocent. "Thank you, Citizen Kes. That means more than you know." As she walked away, Kes whispered something that would become the unofficial motto of the Human Protectorate, repeated in a dozen languages across 300 worlds. "They called us monsters, now they worship us, and we protect them all the same." The age of human guardianship had truly begun.